Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So this book it encompasses 55 chapters, almost 400 ahadith. So obviously, because of the time, we're not going to go over all of them. I'm going to just take one hadith from each chapter, give you a little explanation, and we're going to carry on. Imam Tirmidhi rahmatullahi alayhi was a profound muhaddith. And because I want to focus, and there's so much in depth to go on about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I don't want to spend time on other people. But just to explain to you what kind of legend this man was that, how many of us know who Imam Bukhari is? Yeah, you know who Bukhari is? Who's Imam Bukhari?
His teacher.
His teacher. Okay, that's a good point. What else about him?
The largest volume of hadiths which are
not the largest. His teacher, Abu Bakr ibn Abi Shayba, collected over 30,000 ahadith. Imam Bukhari has about 9,000 or 10,000 ahadith in his book. But he wrote his book very uniquely. And that's a whole different discussion. That there's not a single hadith in Bukhari that's repetitive. Let me repeat that. There's not a single hadith in Bukhari that repeats itself. Every hadith in Bukhari that you have, there will be a slight difference between that hadith and another hadith that comes. That hadith might come 25 times, but there might be one letter difference, or one narrator's difference, or different chain of narration. There will always be something different when it comes to Bukhari's kitab, right? So this man was a boss, right? He was the G of G's, right? He was the man that when you come into hadith, Qala al-Bukhari, mashallah, that's everybody just says, okay, Bukhari said, all right, hats off to him. He knows what he's talking about. Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi says about Imam Tirmidhi, Man tafa'tu bika akthara mimman tafa'ta bi. That Tirmidhi, Abu Isa, I have benefited more from you being my student than you have benefited from me being your teacher. When we were studying, we started from the preliminary books of the Arabic language. We moved on. About 6 or 7 years later, we finally had the opportunity to study hadith. After 7 years of study. And we did in that year, in the final year, we did 30,000 ahadith. We did the whole of Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, Abu Dawud, Ibn Majah, Muwatta Imam Malik, Muwatta Imam Muhammad, Mukhtasar Maqasid Hasana, a good portion of Nasa'i. But the two top books that everyone focused on was because of their style of writing, was Imam Bukhari's Sahih and Imam Tirmidhi rahmatullahi's Jami'. And at the end of his book, he mentions this book, Shomai'l, as a separate category, and usually it's combined together. One thing you have to understand about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is that even in the Kitab of Allah, how many times is the name of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned by name, Muhammad? 4 times. When Allah talks to every prophet, He says, Ya Musa, Ya Adam, Ya Dawood, Ya Sulaiman, Ya Isa ibn Maryam. But when He talks to the Rasul of Allah, He doesn't call him by his name. He says, Ya Ayyuhan Nabi, Ya Ayyuhan Rasul. But Allah mentions the Prophet by name 4 times. However, numerous times in the Quran, Allah mentions the limbs of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That which He has not done for anyone else. Alam nashrah laka sadarak. Oh, the chest of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. La tamattanna aynayk. Your eyes. Wala taj'al yadaka. Not your hands. Alam wa anqadha dhahrak. Your back. Like this, systematically, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned the limbs of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as I mentioned, when the Quran was revealed, there were 2 Qurans revealed. You heard me right. There were 2 Qurans revealed. And if you didn't hear me properly, I've got 2 fingers. One was the theoretical Quran, and one was the practical Quran. One was the Kitab. The second was the embodiment of the Kitab. Someone can say, man, you set the standards, but the standards are too high to follow. Who can follow these standards? Allah says, I'm sending you a person who will oblige by those standards, and his companions will oblige by those standards as well. Allah goes on about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and He says, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. and again, this ayat will just take an hour just to explain just this one ayah. That Allah says, how many of you know Arabic here? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pause for them for a second. I'm gonna indulge them in a minute. Allah says, it starts with waw, wa, first ta'keed. Inna, second ta'keed. Kaf brings it as damir, third ta'keed. Lam, ta'keed. Ala brings jar, ta'keed. Khuluqin brings in nakira, ta'keed. Azim brings sifat, ta'keed. Wa innaka la'ala khuluqin azim. He brings it with almost 7 emphasis on how great the Prophet's character was. Hassan bin Thabit radiyallahu ta'ala anhu says, وَأَحْسَنَ مِنْكَ لَمْ تَرَ قَطُّ عَيْنِي وَأَحْسَنَ مِنْكَ لَمْ تَرَ قَطُّ عَيْنِي وَأَجْمَلَ مِنْكَ لَمْ تَلِدِ النِّسَاءُ خُلِقْتَ مُبَرَّأً مِنْ كُلِّ عَيْبِ كَأَنَّكَ قَدْ خُلِقْتَ كَمَا تَشَاءُ. He says, my eyes, وَأَحْسَنَ مِنْكَ لَمْ تَرَ قَطُّ عَيْنِي, my eyes have never seen anyone more sublime than you in character. وَأَجْمَلَ مِنْكَ لَمْ تَلِدِ النِّسَاءُ. Women have gone barren to give birth to a child more beautiful than you. خُلِقَتَ مُبَرَّأً مِنْ كُلِّ عَيْبِ. You've been created free from all blemishes. كَأَنَّكَ قَدْ خُلِقَتَ كَمَا تَشَاءُ. It is as if you told Allah, I want to be created in this manner. The first chapter, Imam Tirmidhi rahmatullah alayhi Shomai'l, begins with the blessed features of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is a very long chapter, and there are many ahadith, but I'm going to focus on only one hadith, and that is the description that Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu gave of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there's a reason why I am only giving Ali radiallahu anhu's hadith and not anyone else's. Ali radiallahu anhu was very famous for his eloquence. He was a poet. So when he described the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, just to be able to translate it from Arabic to English, just the translation, to focus on his translation, would take us days. Just to understand why he chose this word and not this word and this word and not, to that point. Nor do I have the knowledge of that, nor do you have the time for that. So it's a both win-win situation. So we're going to start off with that. Before I start off, let us read dua together, that Allah make this easy for us. Rabbi yassir, wa la tu'assir, wa tammim bil khair, bika nasta'een, ya fattah, ya fattah, ya fattah. I have an unbroken chain between me and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this entire book. I studied this book under 2 individuals, the greater part of Tirmidhi under Mufti Muhammad Ali, and the lesser part of it under the Shomai'l part under Mufti Alauddin, who taught in Makkah Mukarramah, who taught Bukhari and other books of tafsir in Makkah Mukarramah for almost 20 years as well, before coming to South Africa. He studied this under Mufti Wali Hassan, who studied this under Allama bin Wali rahimahullah, who studied under Allama Rashad Kashmir rahimahullah, who studied under Shaykh al-Hind, who studied under Shaykh al-Hind studied under Shaykh Qasim Nanoti rahimahullah, who studied under Shah Abdul Ghani Mujaddadi, who studied under Shah Ishaq, who studied under Shah Abdul Aziz, who studied under Shah Waliullah, who studied under Shaykh... I already lost you guys right now. So anyway, the point is that all the way to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there is an unbroken chain. For those who attend the class from today all the way till the last class, the 4 classes, I will give you the same ijazah in here. However, this ijazah will be restricted, meaning that you will be connected, but you cannot give other people ijazah. It will just be an honor. But the condition for it is that you have to be here for the 4 classes. If somebody wishes to join next week and they did not know about this, I'm willing to redo this week's class and these ahadith for them so that they can join in this as well, inshallah. So if you want the sanad, you have to go to, what's your name?
Shabir.
I'm very bad with names. Go to Shabir, log your name with him. I'm very, very, very particular about giving ijazah. I've never given it before. I was in California, and at that time I was giving a dars of 40 hadith of Nawawi. I said I will give ijazah to them, and then one person or 2 people in the community, I felt that they did not appreciate ijazah and they did not respect it, so I rescinded the ijazah from the whole community. So this would be the first time I'm giving ijazah, and I'm very particular. It took me 10 years to get mine, or 8 years, or however, it took a very long time for me to get mine. So I don't usually give it away so easily, but because this is a blessed work, and this is the main center of downtown, why not?
Well, River Oaks Islamic Center. Right.
Is this the part of River Oaks Islamic Center? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. وبالسند المتصل منا إلى الإمام الهمام قال حدثنا أحمد بن عبدة الصبي البصري وعلي بن حجر وأبي جعفر محمد بن الحسين وهو ابن أبي حليمة والمعنى واحد قالوا حدثنا عيسى بن يونس عن عمر بن عبد الله مولى غفرة قال حدثني إبراهيم بن محمد بن ولد علي بن أبي طالب رضي الله تعالى عنه قال كان علي إذا وصف رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لم يكن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بالطويل الممغط ولا بالقصير المتردد وكان ربعة من القوم لم يكن بالجعد القطط ولا بالسبت كان جليل المشاش والكدد أجرد كان جعدا رجلا ولم يكن بالمتهم ولا بالمكلثم وكان في وجهه تدوير أبيض مشرب أدعج العينين أهدب الأشفار جليل المشاش والكدد أجرد ذو مسربة شتن الكفين والقدمين إذا مشى تقلع كأنما ينحط في سبب وإذا التفت معا بين كتفيه خاتم النبوة وهو خاتم النبيين. I read it in Arabic is because the actual barak of the hadith and the actual chain is transmitted in Arabic rather than in English. Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu says, this hadith was narrated, Imam Tirmidhi rahmatullahi alayhi says, I heard from Isa ibn Muhammad radiallahu anhu, who is from the sons of Ali radiallahu anhu, that whenever Ali radiallahu anhu described Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam was neither very tall nor short, but of a medium stature amongst people. The Prophet of Allah wasn't so lanky that when you saw him, you thought you saw the Sears Tower. And he wasn't so short that when you looked for him, you're like, where's the Prophet? But he was of a perfect height. The Sahaba say that when the Rasul of Allah walked amongst people and there were people taller than him, he still seemed taller than them. That this was from the miracles of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That one thing is that you're a great person. Right? You're an amazing person, you're a really nice person. And then on top of that, you also exhibit beautiful characteristics. In Urdu they say Sone pe Suhat. Right? You're already an amazing person. You know, one time, this incident is mentioned in Nafhatul Arab. One mother was giving advice to her son. Right? And the son was ugly. Very physically ugly. So she goes to the son, she says, oh my son, listen, I advise you of one thing. He says, of what? He says, of good character. He said, why? He said, listen, you're ugly. If you were beautiful and you had bad character, people would still be like, alright, he's cute, you know, he's good looking, she's pretty, it's okay. But you're ugly and then you have bad character? Listen, those are two khabith things that cannot come together in a person. So pick one or the other.
Ouch.
You all are beautiful people. No one is ugly, but still have good character. So the Rasul of Allah had a perfect equilibrium as far as stature, as far as his height. How tall was he? So you would see a person. What's generally considered a good height? Well, it depends. If you're from India, Pakistan, or Bangladesh, anything above 5'4" is considered a good height. But if you're from Europe or Africa or America, then 6'1", 6'2". So basically somewhere 5'8", 5'9". This is the Prophet's height. Then he goes on and says, his hair was neither very curly nor very straight, but had a slight wave into it. We're going to go over the hair of Rasulullah in a bit. He did not have a big body. The Prophet wasn't fat, wasn't chubby. You know, contrary, you hear always Mawlanas are chubby and fat, right? That the people who are imams are always fat. No. The Prophet wasn't fat. He was the imam of imams. But he didn't have a protruding stomach. He had a flat stomach. Nor a round face. You know, some people, their faces look like frisbees. The Prophet's face was completely defined. He had a very beautiful jawline. He had a very beautiful, defined face. But his Mubarak face was slightly round. Meaning that obviously because he had the beard, and that's one thing you have to understand about Shomai'l al Tirmidhi, is that you'll have different variations of the Prophet's description. And there's a reason for that. And that is because if I tell you guys to describe me, everyone's going to say something different. Someone's going to describe me in one fashion. You see me, my right side. You guys see my left side, right? Somebody sees my back side. You know, someone sees my front side. Everyone sees a different era, a different aspect of me. Amr bin al-As radiallahu anhu. This Sahabi was amongst those who conquered Egypt. Right? This was one of those Sahabas that were, okay, in the beginning of Islam, he was against the Prophet of Allah. But towards the end, he became one of the Prophet's most loyal followers. Subhanallah. Imam Muslim rahmatullahi alayhi narrates, subhanallah, when he was on his deathbed, he started crying. So his son said, my father, why do you cry? You are a Sahabi. You were with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I mean, you had platinum status. You weren't just the normal 5 times musalli, 1 time salah, prayer salah when things go wrong in my life type of Muslim. No, you were you were a sahabi. You stood shoulder to shoulder with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, "Oh my son." He said, "I was so embarrassed of what I did to the Prophet of Allah before I became Muslim. لو قلت لي صف لي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ما استطعت." I spent 20 years with the Prophet, but if you tell me to describe the Prophet to you, ما استطعت, I can. فما أمليت عيني قط إجلالا له. I never looked up to the Prophet and met him in the eye and saw his face out of respect and honor for him and out of what I had done to the Prophet. I spend year after year with the Prophet, but tell me to describe the man, I cannot do it because I always look down in front of the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These individuals were different. Allah chose the best man and then chose the best men to surround him. And the love and the passion, just imagine how much love you have to have for someone to say that you're sitting in front of them day in and day out, but you were so respectful that you kept your head down. The Sahaba would say that birds would come and stop on our heads. And they would think that we're a tree stump or something. And that's how solid we were. Now, subhanAllah, if you look at us, mashallah, everybody's on their cell phones, tweeting, feeling holy, feeling spiritual, trying to embody the Prophet's swag, hashtag, right? This is what we're about. I'm very specific when it comes to the hadith of Rasulullah. I'm very, very, very picky. Even when I teach this class and whatnot, I generally do not like teaching this class in public. Is because of how picky I am in respecting and upholding the respect and the akhlaq of the class. Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi, his class had such a caliber of respect that you had thousands of students, but you would not hear a page flip in his class. I mean, I'm pretty sure I won't hear a page flip, just swipes in this class, but please, if anyone is using their cell phone in any manner, I will ask you to leave. Out of respect for the Prophet ﷺ. I mean, unless you're taking notes or something, but if you're like taking selfies or something with yourself, taking pictures of this, that's fine. But if you're replying to someone on Snapchat or something, I will remove you from the class on that. So then he goes on and says, he did not have a big body nor a round face, but his Mubarak face was slightly round. Remember, he had a full beard, so it would give off the image, but he was defined. The complexion of Rasulullah ﷺ was white with redness in it. The Prophet of Allah wasn't extremely white, but he had this reddish glow to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. To the point the Sahaba said that you could read the Prophet of Allah like an open book. His expressions were very open. If he was happy, you would see the Prophet ﷺ smile. The Prophet ﷺ never laughed out loud in his life. He always smiled. He never laughed out loud. And that's a different discussion for another time. The Prophet ﷺ only smiled. It's sometimes you hear people laughing, subhanAllah. It sounds like the earth's about to shake. So the etiquette of even laughing, right, is that you smile, you don't just start going, right, and that's against the etiquettes of laughing. The Prophet's skin tone, like I said, he was very readable. The Sahaba said when something would upset the Prophet, we would see his face turn red. So the only time a face can turn red is if your skin is able to change that color. You see, most of our skins, they're very dark. Right? But you have those wheatish complexion, right? And not wheatish, wheatish. Wheatish complexion, right? And the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his attributes were known and were understood based on his expressions. The Mubarak eyes, the blessed eyes of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam were extremely black. You see, people like different colored eyes, right? Blue eyes, green eyes, red eyes, black. But if you see completely pitch black eyes, they hold a complete different beauty to them. To the point that Allah in the Quran says, وَحُورٌ عَيْنٌ كَأَمْثَالِ اللُّؤْلُؤِ الْمَكْنُونِ, that even the hurs in Jannah, they'll have very dark black eyes. Very, very dark. Because if you see, I don't see anybody over here that has very dark black eyes like that, but I've seen some people like that who just had, it was as if midnight or 1 a.m. right? And extremely dark eyes. And that just holds a complete different beauty. Is because not only are you amazed by its beauty, but you're awestruck by that individual, by their presence, of just having such defined features. And also, in that era, having colored eyes was considered a defect in a person at that time. There was one time a Sahabi went, Prophet saw him, he was all happy and chirpy. I was like, hey, what's up, man? What's going on with you? He said, Ya Rasulullah, I just got married. I'm planning to get married. You know, I found a girl and Qubul hai. Right? The Prophet said, did you see her? He's like, no. You know, Rishta.com. My parents met her parents, they liked her, and that's it. She's a girl from Ansar. That's it. And I'm planning to get married. The Prophet said, no, make sure you see the wife before you get married. Don't just go on a blind date and get married. He said, because the Ansari women, they have something in their eyes. What that meant was that the commentator on Mishkat, I remember reading this about 7-8 years ago, he wrote that was because her eyes were blue. And at that time, the Ansari women, their eyes were different colors. Why? Was because a lot of Jews had settled in Medina Munawwara waiting for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Jewish people, they came from, they were very light complex. Dawud alayhi salam had blue eyes and blonde hair, right? There were prophets with different colors, different features, but Bani Israel was generally from that color. So when the Jews came and they inhabited Medina Munawwara, obviously that genes passed on. And the eyelashes of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam were long. They weren't short. Obviously, long eyelashes give off beauty in a person. The joints of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his body. You see people's joints? They were firm. They were, meaning that, you know, some people have those small, tiny hands. I have tiny hands, right? Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had strong, large hands, right? When you shake a person's hand with a strong hand, how does it feel? You can already tell, all right, this guy's, whatever he's going to sell me, I'm going to buy it. Right? Whatever it is, doesn't matter. I'm going to buy it. Prophet's hand, his body, his joints, they were very proportioned. They were large in the sense that they didn't look feeble, but they looked empowering. Likewise, the portion between the two shoulders was broad and fully fleshed. The Prophet ﷺ didn't have small shoulders. He had broad shoulders, big shoulders. When a person would see him, again, what was between the shoulders of the Prophet ﷺ? Khatm an-Nubuwwah, the seal of prophethood. We're going to discuss that. Right? So the Prophet ﷺ had broad shoulders. Obviously, there was also the Khatm an-Nubuwwah that was there in the shoulders of the Prophet ﷺ. There was no hair on his body. In some narrations it comes, the Prophet ﷺ had a thin line of hair going down his chest. Some people have profuse hair on their bodies. Some people have, obviously, you know, those who are Desi know. Sayyidina Rasulullah ﷺ did not have hair on the parts of his body. He only had hairs on his arms and his legs, which is a sign of a man, right? Obviously, not having any hair is also something that's not manly. The Prophet ﷺ gave off that impression, but not so much. So that, you see, there's one very important thing about Rasulullah ﷺ. Allah created him perfect in every manner, is because we have to love him more. لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى أكون أحب إليه من والده وولده والناس أجمعين. We're not Muslims until the Prophet is not the most beloved thing in our life, right? Until the Prophet ﷺ, in a matter of speaking, is vague before anyone else, right? So we love the Prophet ﷺ more than anyone, anything doesn't matter. We love him. And in order for a person to capture that type of love, there are usually 6 reasons a person loves somebody. Mal, Jamal, Kamal, Nawal, Hubbi la Zawal, Kawnihi kal walid wa nahnu kal ayal. I was going to discuss this in khutbah tomorrow. And is everyone coming for Jummah khutbah tomorrow?
Repeat, it's alright.
Repeat. Man.
We don't mind.
Alright. There are 6 things where a person is loved, where people love a person for. Number 1 is Jamal. When someone's beautiful, you automatically like them. Number 2 is Mal. When someone has money, you see them driving in a GTR or Bentley, say, oh, how's everything? You know, how are you doing? There was that YouTube video that I saw on Facebook, or his Facebook video of that guy. He's proposing to a girl, and she's like, I don't want to marry him or whatever, and then the Canadian passport falls down. And then she's like, oh, you know what? This is my happily ever after, right? So what do you call, going back, Mal. Number 3, Kamal. When a person exhibits great character, right? Or he has something that's really special. For example, a person's a good speaker, or a person's a good teacher, or a person's a good, in their profession, good doctor. You automatically like them, you respect them for their qualification. Number 4 is Nawal. When someone does something for you, right? Mal, Jamal, Kamal, Nawal, right? For example, this brother brought me a little bit of water, right? I'd be grateful to him because he did something for me, right? Number 5, Hubbi la Zawal. When someone loves you unconditionally, right, you automatically start liking them back, unless they're kind of stalkerish, right? But we're talking about like a general, like your mom loves you, your grandma loves you, your mother-in-law loves you, however rare that is. But all these things, when someone starts being really nice to you, you automatically love them at the same time. And since I brought up the story of mother-in-law, I don't know if my sister-in-law is watching this or not, but my sister-in-law, I think she is watching it. My sister-in-law, she's younger than me. She's 10 years younger than my brother. She was born and raised in Dallas. When she, obviously, an American girl, got married so young. She was like 17 or 18 when she got married. So there's always challenges, right? Staying at home. My parents were home and whatnot. But in their 4 or 5 years, my mom never raised her voice. My mom never told her to do anything. So, and even when they would get into an argument, my mom would always take the side of her instead of my brother. So one day, I think a couple of months back, she asked my mom, she said, you know, Mommy, why do you always take my side? You never take Wasim's side. Besides the fact that you're generally wrong. I'm just joking, but, or I'm not because she's watching. So my mom said, she said, if I want to maintain this marriage, I will take your side. And if I want to break it, I will take his side. Right? And when someone likes, and you know, we do. I mean, I remember getting in like arguments with my father and be like, yo, you like her more than you like us, right? Like my mom on her cell phone has, for my sister-in-law, it's written, loving Beti, right? For my sister, it's just written, Bahrain, right? It's just, her name is just written there, right? But when you show that much affection to someone, they automatically love you back. And number 6, Kawnihi kal walid wa nahnu kal ayad. The Prophet of Allah ﷺ was like a father to us, was like a spiritual father to us. And when someone is like a father to your fatherly figure, like your uncle, teacher, friend, doesn't matter, you automatically begin having affection and love for them. There was no hair on his body, did not have hair on the other parts. He had a thin line of hair running from the chest to the navel. The hands and feet of Rasulullah ﷺ were fully fleshed. When he walked, he lifted his legs with vigor, as if he were descending on a low-lying place. Have you know when you're going down a hill? People in America don't walk too much, but in other parts of the world, people walk. When you're going downhill, there's 2 or 3 things you have to keep conscious, right? Number 1 is that your speed, right? Number 2 is your balance, right? So when you're walking, you see some people, I call them hoppers, right? It's because when they walk on their tippy toes, right? The Prophet of Allah didn't walk on his tippy toes, but he walked firmly on the ground, like you're going down a mountain. His feet were firm, right? Another thing is that the Prophet didn't hop or didn't walk like a thug, right? The Prophet had a humble walk. And this is important, is because men know this, and I guess women also walk as well, but I mean in the sense that men concentrate a lot on how they walk, right? It's because they want to either be a G or they want to, you know, I mean, I'm from New York, so that's generally how people like to walk, or they want to give off a persona. But the Prophet of Allah's persona was very different. He lifted his leg, putting it down, meaning that it was a concentrated walk. At the same time, it was humble. The Prophet of Allah wasn't arrogant when he was walking. He didn't protrude his chest when he was walking. But the Prophet of Allah was very humble. And this is extremely important. It's because each one of us, when you're walking out of here, just reflect on how you walk. And think about it, is that sometimes some people walk too fast. Some people walk too slow. The Prophet ﷺ had a moderate pace. Yes, it was faster for other people, but that was just because when you're going downhill, what also happens? You walk faster as well, right? So the Prophet ﷺ did have a slightly faster pace, but again, that was because his steps were very calculated. And also, if you start focusing on how your feet take steps, you'll also focus on where you're going, if it's a good or bad place. So if you keep this conscious, I want to walk like Rasulullah ﷺ, and you inhibit that characteristics of walking like the Prophet of Allah, when you go towards a bad place, you'll be like, you know what? I can't walk like this, walking like Rasulullah ﷺ, because I've adopted his walk now. When I've adopted his walk, I need to go to the place where he used to walk to. When this is something that it hits me, this part of the hadith, that when he would talk to someone, he wouldn't just turn his face towards them. He would turn his body towards them completely and speak to them. Right? He would make each. If you go through the ahadith, right, you'll find scores of ahadith where Sahaba say, "I was the Prophet's favorite." This Sahabi because I was the Prophet's favorite. It's because the Prophet made everyone feel like they were his favorite. Every single person thought that no, my connection to the Prophet, it's not like Abu Bakr. Nah, man, you got to see how I was with the Prophet ﷺ. we were homies. We were really tight with the Prophet ﷺ. He made everyone feel special, right? So many times you're walking. These are etiquettes to embody. An elder speaks to you, right? You don't just sit down and just say, "Yeah, mom, I'm coming." No, but you address someone fully. You give them their attention. The Prophet ﷺ, again, was the zenith of qualification, of greatness. And the Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba were far less than the Prophet. The Prophet was the most elevated prophet amongst the prophets. He was the Sayyid al-Mursaleen. He was, Ana Sayyidu Wuldi Adam wala fakhr. I am the leader of mankind on the day of judgment. I'm not boasting about it, the Prophet ﷺ said. Being of that caliber where you are the best creation of Allah. Anyone came, doesn't matter, the Prophet ﷺ turned away. Gave them their attention. Made them feel special. Wasn't just brush them aside, but spoke to them with care. He did not only turn his face towards the person he addressed, as this is considered impolite, and sometimes it even denotes pride. Rasulullah ﷺ faced the person he spoke to with his chest and his body. The seal of the Prophet ﷺ was situated between his shoulders. We're going to talk about this in the next chapter. He was the last of all prophets. He was the most generous. Now, Ali radiallahu anhu is going on a tangent. Right? He was told, describe the Prophet Allah physical to me. Now he's describing, and then he just gets caught up into it. And then he starts saying, man, he was the last of all prophets. He was the most generous. He was the most truthful. He was the most kind-hearted. He was the most noble in family. Man, forget about him. Even his lineage was so noble. What can I tell you about? This man just went in. And you have to understand where these men came from. Rasulullah ﷺ wasn't just a religion to them. Rasulullah ﷺ was a best friend to them. The Prophet of Allah was their leader, was their general. The Prophet ﷺ was their president. The Prophet ﷺ was their fatherly figure. The Prophet ﷺ was their go-to person. And the way the Prophet of Allah won everyone's hearts, that's just phenomenal. You have your cousin. Everybody got cousins. When you have cousins, me, among myself, I can walk around anywhere in the world and people be like, Mufti Sahab, Mufti Sahab. I go to my cousins, they're like, yo, Steve, what's up, man? Just sit on the floor, man. There's no space on the couch anymore. Right? I walk in anywhere else, people be like, oh, Sahab, come take the chairs and that. When you go to your own family, we know him when he was in his diapers. And I was like, man, you're like 2 years younger than me. What are you talking about? Right? But when you have family, they don't have the same relationship with you. But Ali radiallahu anhu, being the cousin of the Prophet ﷺ, son-in-law, how many son-in-laws like their father-in-laws? Right? How, this doesn't happen, right? The best relationship you'll have with your father-in-law is that the father-in-law doesn't talk to the son-in-law. Son-in-law doesn't talk to the father-in-law. The mother-in-law is in between as a liaison, right? But him being the son-in-law, awe-struck by the Prophet ﷺ. Loved him so much. Being the cousin, Abbas radiallahu anhu was 3 years older than the Prophet ﷺ. And Imam Tirmidhi mentions this in Sunan al-Tirmidhi as well. In the birth of the Prophet ﷺ, he mentions this in the second half of Tirmidhi. Someone asked Abbas radiallahu anhu, they said, who is bigger, you or the Prophet? Who is? Man akbar. Between you and the Prophet, because you guys were so close in age. He said, akbar كان هو ولكن أنا ولدت 3 سنوات من قبل. He said, who was bigger? He was definitely bigger. But destiny had it that I was born 3 years before him. You want to know who was greater? Yeah, it was him, definitely. It just so happens that I was born 3 years before him. Rasulullah ﷺ, again, now, this is one hadith, by the way. This is not multiple hadith. This is Ali going off completely on the Prophet ﷺ. He says, Rasulullah ﷺ, going back, he was the last of all prophets. Khatam al-Nabiyyin. Khatim. In Arabic, there's 2 ways of saying it. One is Khatam, bi fath ta, with the zabr on the ta. And one is Khatim, bi kasr ta, with the zair on the ta. Khatam means the seal. Khatim means the final. Khatam also means ring. Right? So the Prophet ﷺ was the seal because they would seal with their rings. The Prophet ﷺ was the seal of prophethood. He was also Khatimun Nabiyyin. He was the final prophet. How many qira'ats of the Quran are there? 7? No.
13.
13? No.
11.
2. 10.
1.
That of the Prophet.
There's actually over 980 turuq of reciting the Quran. Imam Jazir rahmatullahi mentions it on Nashr. But the famous qiraat are 10. The reason people said 7 was because in the Arabic world, the number 7 is basically their dozen, right? When you know how we have dozens or a number like that, for them the number 7 is their dozen. So the 7 qiraat became predominant, very well known. However, in terms of authenticity and caliber, there are 10 qiraat. Each one of them had 2 students, therefore making it 20 riwayat. Then this is a discussion for another time. But in the Quran, where Allah says, مَا كَانَ مُحَمَّدٌ أَبَا أَحَدٍ مِّن رِجَالِكُمْ وَلَكِنْ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ وَخَاتَمَ النَّبِيِّينَ. In another recitation, it's وَخَاتِمَ النَّبِيِّينَ. In one recitation, it means the seal. In one recitation, it means the final prophet. And again, no recitation has any type of contradiction amongst them. He was the most generous. Subhanallah. The generosity of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, phenomenal. تعود بسط الكف حتى لو أنه ثناها لقبض لم تطعه أنامله تراه إذا ما جئته متهللا كأنك الذي تعطيه أنت سائله هو البحر من أي نواحيه أتيته فلجته المعروف والجود ساحله. In another poem, another poet says about Zain al-Abidin, the great grandson of the Prophet ﷺ, and obviously it can be said about the Prophet as well. ما قال لا قط إلا في تشهده لولا التشهد كان لاؤه نعم. That the Prophet of Allah never said la. What does la mean?
No.
He never said la besides one place. In la ilaha illallah. Had there been no la ilaha illallah, the Prophet would never say that. Right? So I mean, these are all very lengthy topics. And he was the most truthful. We can focus on the Prophet's life after Nabuwah. But the real test is before Nabuwah, how was he? He stands on top of Mount Safa, subhanAllah. If you go for Hajj and Umrah, don't just circuit around the Kaaba and jog through Safa and Marwa as if you're trying to show off how many calories you can burn, right? Just let that place sink into you. When I take I have a Hajj and Umrah company, I'm not advertising, maybe I am a little bit, but when I take my Hajjis, I take them, you put your student promo code, River Oaks. When the Prophet, when I would take people by Mount Safa, I will take them by Mount Safa and I will tell them before they start their Umrah, I will tell them that look at how many people are walking from Safa to Marwa. And then I want you to think that there was a time where the same amount of people were standing, but the Prophet of Allah was alone with his message. And he stood on this mountain, never foreseeing that one day everyone on this side of the mountain would be his follower, and not only his follower, devoted followers of his. He stood there just for them to listen to his message. He stood on top of the mountain, just listen to my message. And tabbat ya tabban laka ya Muhammad. The Muhammad, may your hands be destroyed. And Allah revealed tabbat yada abi lahabin wa tab. But just that the Prophet standing there and looking over. But when he started off his speech, you have your qualifications, right? So okay, inshallah, we're going to have Dr. I know your name. Arsalan. Dr. Arsalan address us on ophthalmology. So, okay, yes, that's his field. He can speak on it. And I don't know anyone else in the crowd. But Osama is somewhere in oil. Why are gas prices going down? We're going to talk to Osama about that, inshallah. Right? You give your qualifications. When the Prophet of Allah stood up, he gave only one qualification. He said, what do you say about me? You tell me my qualification. They said, man, you are the most honest person ever. You don't lie for anything. And he said, all right, I got a message for you now. And they said, oh man, you're lying. Right? But the Prophet's qualification of him being truthful before Nabuwah, that is what was remarkable on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was the most kind-hearted. He was a very, very nice person. Someone asked yesterday, they sent me a masala, they said, does it say in hadith that women have to cook for their husbands? Right? Obviously, that's a discussion for another time. But there was a hadith that was quoted, which was that the Prophet of Allah ﷺ would enter his house, and he would fix his own shoe, sew his own clothes, help out with the home chores. You have the Rasul of Allah. No, I've been working in ER the whole day. I'm too busy. I've been seeing dead bodies. I bring home so much money. The house chores are yours. I don't have time for this. Or someone, I was hearing someone give advice to another person on, there was an uncle, when he was giving advice to this kid who was getting married, he was like, Beta, the first year or so is where you establish your authority. He says, even if you want to wash the dishes, don't do it. He said, you have to establish your authority there. And I was like, what is this, like Baghdad or Kabul or something? To establish authority? I said, this is getting married. He's staying in an apartment or a condo. How much authority does he want? Dominion does he want? But the Prophet ﷺ was very kind. He cared for everyone, for humans, for animals. And these are all subjects we'll talk about as time progresses. And he was the most noble in lineage. In one place, I had heard in one lecture a while back, Allah on the authenticity of it, but that from the Prophet ﷺ till Amma Hawa, till Eve, there is not a single person in the Prophet ﷺ's lineage, direct lineage, that committed adultery. Not a single person. The Prophet's lineage was the purest. And that's something that's obviously not far-fetched. It's because obviously somebody committed adultery, then it taints their lineage and whatnot. But the Prophet of Allah, ﷺ, in terms of lineage, was from the most honorable lineage. And whenever I talk to Christians, it's crazy. When I tell them that the Prophet of Allah was the son of Ishmael, they'd be like, no way, and they just go berserks. It's because the Old Testament actually speaks about a prophet from Arabia and Ishmael and all of that stuff, and they're like, oh man, that makes sense now. And so this is something that if you want to speak to non-Muslims, especially Christians, start off with this topic. It's actually in the Old Testament, maybe the 5th or 6th page or something like that. There's so many Bibles, it just depends which one you have in your hand. Any person who saw him suddenly would become awe-inspired. When you see somebody for the first time, everybody's young over here, so I'll be very open and candid. If I offend anyone, you can come and tell me. I'm from New York, New Jersey. The threshold is very low of offending people. So if I do offend anyone, especially the sisters, please do come and let me know. Most of you probably do go on your rishta talks right now, right? Go meet the new family, meet the in-laws, whatever level you're on. Either you're seeing her before, or you act like you see her for the first time when you enter on the samosa run, right? When you see the father, what is the first thing that happens? You have this, you're awestruck. Right? And for those who have actually been to a traditional rishta before in their life, they know what I'm talking about. That when for the first time you go there, and they're like, Beta, talk! Ask whatever, you want her to talk to her, right? Talk! And you're like, Mom, a little bit. Beta, we're not listening, Beta. What are you saying? Right? So you have that, you have this, it's called ru'ab in Arabic, right? You have this ru'ab, this awe. The Prophet of Allah had many miracles. One of his miracles, the narration is in Bukhari, is that utitu ru'ab masirata shahrin. The Prophet of Allah's awe, usually when you see a person or your boss, when he's right in front of you, then you're like, oh man, you start bugging out, right? But the Prophet of Allah's awe was so long distance that he says that the distance of 1 month away from the Prophet, which is basically about 8 hours away from the Prophet. It took 2 weeks from Medina to Mecca, so double that distance, which is about 4 hours, so 8 hours. 8-hour distance. That's like from here to Dallas and back, right? That's how much the Prophet's awe basically emitted from him. So now you have someone who you feel so scared in front of. Now how do you open up to him? Ali radiallahu anhu says that he had such a great personality and dignity that the person who saw him for the first time was just blown away by this man. You see him and you're just remarking about his perfection. You're remarking about his character, about his loyalty of his followers, about his message. Because of his awe-inspiring personality. I told you, Ali was just as described the Prophet to us, and now he's just going off. He's like, man, he was just so amazing, so nice, so generous. He was just so awe-inspiring. But let me tell you something, man. When the first time you see him, you're gonna start tripping out. You're gonna be like, oh, this guy's so scary. But let me tell you something. Would be overcome with the feeling of profound respect. You're not gonna be scared of him out of fear. Like when your boss comes, you see, they say be a person that people are happy wherever you go. Not a person that people are happy whenever you go. Right? Be a person that people are happy wherever you go. Right? So now if a person has that awe thing, you're like, when some people have fathers like that, relatives like that, when they enter the house after work, they want everyone to be silent and they want, mashallah, Gaddafi's ready to take over their house, right? The kids start running around. Everyone has that 1-2 parents, right? Or a relative or something that wants to, subhanallah, establish authority. So going back, So the person says that, well, the Prophet's demeanor gave off the same feeling. And he said, no. He said, you are awestruck of him out of respect for him, not fear of him. There's a difference. That's like, when you see you see a celebrity or someone, you say, oh my God, I'm melting, right? That's like a person in front of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that they're awestruck in regards to his respect. Firstly, there is a roar for physical beauty. When you see someone really good looking, drop dead gorgeous, what happens? You just, never mind. When you see someone for the first time that has a lot of physical beauty, you're awestruck in their beauty. Well, with this, when other kamalat are added, then this could be said about roar. Besides the special attributes and qualities granted to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of the special roar is also a special quality. Anyone who came in close contact with him and knew his excellent character was smitten with him, with love. If you knew him, you were head over heels over him. Imagine, the guy had 9 wives, and each one of them was fighting for more time and was ecstatic with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was so pleased with them. He had a whole nation. His enemies respected him. The Prophet is going for a hijrah and says, okay, Ali, you have to stay back. You know why? These people, they hate me, they want to kill me, but I still have their amanat with me. They still trust me to keep their money. What is the thing that you love the most in the world? Your money. You don't trust that with anybody, right? One time there's this woman, she was walking, and she had this gold necklace, and she lost it. So as she's walking, she says, Ya Allah, whatever happens, please don't let a Maulana find my necklace. So Maulana was sitting there, and he was like, hey, that's pretty messed up. That's pretty Donald Trump, what you just said right now. And he said, what do you think, I'm going to steal it? She said, no. You see, if I lost my necklace and a normal person found it, on the day of judgment, I can ask Allah and, I'll get it back. But if you find, you're going to find a loophole somewhere. And forget the dunya, even in the akhirat, I'm not going to get my gold necklace. Right? So, anyone who came in contact with him, they were smitten by his action, by his personality, by his persona, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Anyone who described his noble features can only say, and this is something else, this last statement, مَا رَأَيْتُ قَبْلَهُ مِثْلَهُ وَلَا بَعْدَهُ مِثْلَهُ مَا رَأَيْتُ قَبْلَهُ مِثْلَهُ وَلَا بَعْدَهُ مِثْلَهُ. Never before him did I see anyone like him. Never after him have I seen him. Never before, never after. Abu Tufail Amr bin al-Dawsi radiallahu anhu was the last Sahabi to pass away. He said, مَا كَانَ عَلَى وَجْهِ الْأَرْضِ. He said, there's nobody on this earth, أَبَقَى, remaining, that has witnessed the Prophet besides me. He said, I am the last man that has gazed upon the Rasul of Allah. He said, I can tell you one thing, مَا رَأَيْتُ قَبَلَهُ مِثْلَهُ وَلَا بَعْدَهُ مِثْلَهُ. Never before him have I seen someone like him, and never after him have I seen someone like him. The blessed seal of the Prophet. How much time do we have left? 25 minutes, inshallah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. حدثنا محمد بن بشار قال حدثنا بشر بن الوضاح قال حدثنا ابن عقيل الدورقي عن أبي نضرة العوقي قال سألت أبا سعيد الخدري رضي الله عنه عن خاتم الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم يعني خاتم النبوة فقال كان في ظهره بضعة ناشزة. He said, I asked Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiallahu ta'ala anhu that how was the seal of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So he said that it was a piece of raised flesh that was on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's back. Now how did this khatam, how did this seal look like? There are many narrations. Again, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't just sit around walking around showing his khatam nabuwah, right? There were sahaba that would actually come and try to check it out. To understand the Prophet of Allah, he didn't have much money. And the Prophet's faqr was ikhtiyari, not ithtirari. Understand this point. The Prophet's poverty was chosen, and it was not because he was forced into poverty. He chose to remain, to live a frugal life. It wasn't that, oh, you know, someone says that you what do you call, you make like $10 an hour or something, And then a person says, Alhamdulillah, I make $10 an hour. I'm happy with what I get. Well, he can't say anything else because he can't make $20 an hour, right? So he's just stuck in saying Alhamdulillah for 10, right? But a person who's making 100 and says, no, Alhamdulillah, I'm happy with 10. I'm happy with what I have. Then you can say, now this man could have made more, but he didn't. The Prophet of Allah was offered that the mountains would be turned into gold. The Prophet had Sahaba that were so bawling, like Abdul Rahman bin Auf radiallahu anhu, that Jibreel alayhi salam comes and says that, Ya Rasulullah, out of all your Sahaba, he's going to be the last one to enter Jannah. Why? He had a caravan that went from Medina Munawwara all the way to, I believe it was Yemen or Syria, or it was for a very long distance. We're talking about, put it in our words, imagine trucks, 18-wheelers, from Houston all the way to Dallas and beyond, jam-packed in a traffic line filled with iPhones, right? Filled with really expensive, some people make some dirty faces, Androids then, that makes you guys happy. Right? Phones, laptops, whatever you want, the most expensive things. Abdurrahman bin Auf had this whole 18-wheeler trucks all the way. Jibreel says, Ya Rasulullah, this man's going to Jannah last. Even though he was Badri, he was from early Muslims, he was from Ashara Mubashara. He said, Abdurrahman bin Auf said, why Ya Rasulullah? Nabi Sallallahu said, the counting, because your wealth. He said, Ya Rasulullah, give all of my wealth in sadaqah. Clear it out, make it easy. Take the whole credit card account. Take the whole balance. Prophet of Allah said, no. Give half and invest the other half. Sometimes you walk out of the masjid all pumped up. I'm going to pray Tahajjud today, I'm going to pray Shraq today, I'm going to do everything today. And then, no, just chill out, just pray Fajr today, right? One salah at a time, right? And then move on. People are going to walk out of here, no, inshallah, I'm going to start doing all the sunnahs of the Prophet. I'm going to get broad shoulders, I'm going to put a khatm in the book in the back. Right? Step by step, right? Learn how to walk like the Prophet first, and then go on. So he says that the Prophet had, now again, each person, so going back on this hadith, Sahaba would go to, so the Prophet didn't have much wealth. Again, it was ikhtiyari, not ittarari, right? He chose. So he would wear a shawl most of the times because obviously he couldn't afford beyond that. So the Sahaba would sometimes come, or new Muslims would sometimes come to peep, to see it. The Prophet would just drop his shawl so that they could see it. Salman Farsi radiallahu anhu, they say he lived for 150 years. In one book it says he lived for 300 years. Wallahu a'lam. 60 years or 70 years after Nabuwah, and 70 years, one narration says 70 years before Nabuwah, another narration puts him at like 300. His story is long. He went through different transitions. He was a Zoroastrian, then a Jew, then a Christian, then he moved on, he went to the different monasteries. Finally he ended up in Medina Munawwara waiting for the new prophet. So there were three signs. Number one was that he would migrate from Arabia, from Makkah to Medina, right? Which was complete. There were two more signs. The Prophet of Allah would take hadiyah, but would not take sadaqah, would not take charity. He would take hadiyah, but not charity. And the third one was that there would be a seal of prophethood between his shoulders. So Salman Farsi would come to see the Prophet ﷺ, and he says, he brings in dates, and he says, these are for sadaqah. Prophet ﷺ tells the Sahaba, all of you eat. He doesn't touch from it. Next day, Salman comes and says, these are for hadiyah. Prophet ﷺ ate from it. So he started walking around, the Prophet was sitting over here, and some other one's just trying to play it cool, and he's like, walking around, the Prophet, everybody's looking, the Prophet knows what he's trying to look at, right? Because he knows that he was a Christian, he came from the books. So he's walking, he's trying to play it really cool, and the Prophet said, I got you, man. And he just lowered his shawl, and he sees it. And some narrations that come that some of the Sahaba went and touched it. Some of the Sahaba, they kissed it. Some of the Sahaba, it was a moment of affection. Imagine seeing the seal of prophethood. The seal of prophethood that every prophet is granted. Imagine seeing it, right? And everything that you've been looking for. You know how when the new iPhone 6 comes out, or the Note 6 comes out, or a Galaxy, or Plus One, or a Segway, or a Chanel bag, whatever you guys like. When something new is coming out, you anticipate it, and then finally when it's out, you're just excited, even though you don't have it. You just got released today. Right? You didn't even buy it, but it just got released today, but you're excited. Imagine waiting for the prophecies to see the seal of prophethood. In some narrations, 70 years, 150 years, whatever ones you want to take it, right? We're not here to debate the authenticity of it. We're here to discuss the passion of it. This man finally sees it. Being chained up, kicked out of his house, being made into a slave, all for just one thing. That's all I wanted to see. I put up all of these things. Man, Salman Farsi was balling back in Persia. His father was the clan leaders and whatnot. They had a lot of money. They were basically the sheikhs of that area, right? They fire worship, they kindled that fire, they made barbecues, whatever they did. That was that family that did it. They were rich, and he left all that just to see that. And finally, he sees it. Imagine the passion that's going through him. And that story is long some other time, inshallah. Ya Allah. The seal of the prophethood, again, time is being limited, so I'm going to go through, how much? 10 minutes left? 10 minutes? Okay. I'm going to go through it very quickly then. The Prophet's seal was there from birth. It didn't just appear there, it was there from birth. At the time of the death of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, some of the Sahaba were questioning his death. Did the Prophet of Allah die or not? Umar radiallahu anhu says, whoever says that the Prophet of Allah has died, then I will behead him and I will sever his head from his body. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu comes and says, Man kana yu'minu bil Rasul bi Muhammad فإنه قد مات فإنه قد مات ومن كان يؤمن بالله فإنه حي لا يموت. Everyone's gonna imagine the person you lose, the person you love the most, you lose them. The person you left everything for, you lose them. Umar radiallahu anhu comes, I will kill anyone who says it. And Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu comes and says that whoever believes in Muhammad, فَإِنَّهُ قَدْ مَاتَ, he has passed away. But whoever believes in Allah, فَإِنَّهُ حَيٌّ لَا يَمُوتُ, if you believe in Allah, Allah is all living, Allah never dies. So Asma radiallahu anha proved that the Prophet ﷺ had passed away because the seal of the prophethood had disappeared at the time of his passing away. So Ibn Hibban is a great muhaddith. He says that, and the other Sahabas have said, that Muhammad Rasulullah was written on the seal. What was on the seal? Muhammad Rasulullah was written. In some other narrations we find that Sir فَأَنْتَ الْمَنْصُورِ was written. That go wherever you want to, you shall be successful, you shall be helped. Mansur, you shall be helped. Was written on the seal. In some narrations nothing was written. I find this to be more closer to reality. It was the size of a pigeon egg. It was the size of a pigeon egg. Between the shoulders, and some narrations say that there were some hair that surrounded it. Light hair, not in a way to put you off. The blessed hair of the Prophet ﷺ. Bara bin Azib radiallahu anhu reports, this Sahabi, he was a Sahabi, his father was a Sahabi, his grandfather was a Sahabi. 3 generation Sahabi. You know, we pride ourselves, we're second generation American, my parents were citizens. Nah, they had the citizenship of Rasulullah, Sahabiyat. 3 generation Sahabi. Nabi ﷺ was of average height, and the portion between the 2 shoulders was wide. His hair was till his earlobes, right? Because I'm short pressed on time, I'm going to push through this. There are 3 types of hair the Prophet ﷺ embodied. Wafra, up to the earlobe. Limma, between the earlobe and the shoulder. And shoulders is jumma. The Sahaba say, some say we saw him with the wafra, some say we saw him with the limma, some say we saw him with the jumma. The reason is because obviously people cut their hair. Somebody saw him with his hair all the way here. He didn't cut it in a while. Prophet's hair never exceeded his shoulders. The Prophet ﷺ's hair, sometimes they saw it, well, the Prophet ﷺ reached his shoulder, he would cut it to his earlobe, right? And then it would grow. So they saw that transitioning period. So different perspectives, different narrations. Prophet ﷺ only shaved his hair at the time of Umrah. He did 4 Umrahs in his life after being Nabi. Umratul Qada in the 7th year Hijri, Fateh Makkah, after that Umrah Ji'rana, and Hajjatul Wada. 4 times he did it. 7th Hijri, Umratul Qada. They were stopped in 6th Hijri at the time of Hudaybiyah. Their visa was denied. Again, you know, the Saudis have not let go of that practice of denying people's visas from that time. The Prophet's visa was denied, so he came back the next year when the quota was open, and he did Umrah that time. The Prophet ﷺ used to put his hair backwards, and he combed it. It used to be slicked backwards. His hair was not straight nor curly, right? His hair was wavy. To put it in perspective, have you seen Prince Charming's hair? Right? That ideal, that type of hair, right? It's wavy, right? It's not straight, and it's not what do you call curly, but it's wavy. Like you see a Prophet's hair, and you just see it comes about him that. It comes about him. Okay, we're talking the combing of the Prophet ﷺ. How did the Prophet ﷺ comb his hair? Aisha radiallahu anha says that Rasulullah ﷺ liked to begin with the right while combing his hair, while performing wudu, and while putting his shoes on. Anything good that he did, he'd like to do it with the right. The Prophet ﷺ would comb his right hair first, and then would comb his left hair. Am I blocking you guys' view from this thing? The Prophet ﷺ would begin from the right side. He would oil his hair and his beard. Olive oil. The Prophet ﷺ loved olives and olive oil. He would oil his hair and his beard, and he would wear an imama or a hat. So what happens if your hair is too oily? It seeps through, right? So the Prophet ﷺ would put a cloth on top so that it would not seep into his imama. Aisha radiallahu anha would comb his hair while she was in the state of menstruation. This is a whole different topic about when women are going through menstruation. A person's relationship and a person's personality completely changes towards them, and which is actually discouraged. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Aisha radiallahu anha, and them, Prophet sallallahu didn't ostracize her. Yes, there was certain things that they could not do based on circumstances. However, there was affection still there. For example, and that's why she mentions it. She doesn't just say, "Oh, I combed his hair." No, but she says it out of love. That look, I was even in this state, but we still had a bond. And number two is that, again, this is a forgotten sunnah to have your spouse comb your hair and whatnot. Again, they're not your mothers. Don't ask them every single day. But it's something to keep a sunnah alive. Abu Dawud narrated a hadith, and Tirmidhi narrated it on the authority of Abdullah bin Mughaffal, that you should not comb your hair excessively. The Prophet of Allah would comb his hair once every 3 days. Obviously, our nutrition is different, our hairs are different, but the idea is that don't sit there in the mirror for 20 minutes trying to blow dry your hair and get that Justin Bieber purple hair type of look. Alright? But this is dunya. Comb it, but don't do it excessively. A lot of people, we spend too much time. The Prophet of Allah did it once every 3 days. And he was the most freshest guy. Right? Same thing with you. Don't sit there overdoing it, over beautifying this. There's time, and our life is very short. We're here for a mission, and that is to worship Allah, to spread peace. We need to accomplish that mission. We don't got time to comb our hair for that long. How much time do I have left?
About 5 minutes.
5 minutes? Okay. I'm going to go through this quick. You see, there are 3 ways of teaching hadith when we were studying it. Well, obviously, we did 30,000 hadith, 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day. So that's a lot of material to cover. So there are 3 trimesters, right? The first trimester, the teacher read, the teacher understood, the students, it was a good pace, the students understood too. The second trimester, the speed was bumped up because we got to finish by our quota. So the teacher could understand, but the student didn't understand at all, right? The third trimester, we went so fast, the teacher didn't understand, nor did the student understand. This is a joke, but we actually didn't understand the stuff we were doing. How much white hair did the Prophet of Allah have? Right? I don't have time because my time is so limited, but imagine how much these guys counted to the Prophet, how much they cared for him. How much white hair does my Nabi have? Right? Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu says Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had about 20 white hair. That's it. 63-year-old person, 20 white hair. Where was the white hair? It was in his temples, and it was here. Anas radiallahu anhu is the more famous one who comments on this. He says one time that I counted the Prophet's hair. He said, I sat there and I counted it. 14. One time 17. One time he says 20. Obviously different perspectives. Some hairs fall out and whatnot. Different times. Right? But another opinion is that the Prophet really didn't have white hair. And when he oiled it, it gave off a hue. Prophet ﷺ was asked, Ya Rasulullah, you're getting old. As a joke, someone said, Ya Rasulullah, you're getting old now. Because obviously you're 63 years old and your hair is still... Actually, the Prophet ﷺ passed away at 62, not 63. Because lunar is 63, or 61, sorry. And solar is 61 years old. Right? The Prophet ﷺ said, you know what, man? Surah Hud, Surah Waqi'ah, Surah Mursalat, Amma, and Idha Shamsu Kuwirat. These 5 surahs made me old. Pondering on them, thinking about them, focusing on them, and just the reality of Qiyamah brought me so much fear that it made my hair white. One time, I believe it was Sam ibn Nuh, the son of Nuh alayhi salam, he was dead, and Isa alayhi salam was asked, bring him back to life. So he said, Qum bi idhnillah, come back to life with the permission of Allah. When he came back to life, his hair was white. So he actually passed away at a very young age. So someone asked him, how did your hair turn white? Obviously, he's been in the grave for a couple of thousand years, but that apparently was an important part of explanation. He said that, well, you know what? I thought it was Qiyamah time. So I tripped out, and I got really old so quickly, right? So white hair in a person is nur. You should not pluck the white hair. It's makruh to pluck the white hair. It is nur. The Prophet of Allah ﷺ said when a person gets older and they start getting white hair, Allah feels bashful from them from punishing them. And based on their white hair, Allah forgives them. So even if you have that one little white hair, you're like, yeah, like somewhere there. The blessed coloring, the henna, the Prophet ﷺ used on his hair. Abu Rimtha Taymi radiallahu anhu says, I attended a gathering of Rasulullah ﷺ with my son. Nabi ﷺ asked me, is this your son? I replied, yes, this is my son. You be a witness to it. Back in the day in Jahiliyyah, people, if your son did something stupid, the father would also have to pay for it as well. So he's going to Nabi ﷺ to say that, Ya Rasulullah, this is actually my son. If something happens, I will take the fall for it. Jesus, God, you can put the links together. Rasulullah ﷺ said, the revenge of his crime is not on you, nor is the revenge of your crime on him. He said, you can't take the fall for him. The one who makes the mistake makes the mistake. It doesn't matter if you're Shaykh or you're Mufti or you're related to the Prophet, it doesn't matter. In the eyes of Allah, everyone is equal. No, Logan, Usama bin Zayd radiallahu anhu was asked, this really rich girl, or a really rich person, they stole. So their hands were supposed to get cut based on the penalty of that time. So they went to Usama bin Zayd and they said, Anta hibbu Rasulillah. You are the beloved of Rasulullah. Nabi Sallallahu loves you. Your father was the adopted son of the Prophet. Go and talk to them and tell the Prophet, let it go. She's a famous person. She's a big shot. No, it's going to be disgraceful. It's going to be bad for the whole family. And what are people going to say? The Prophet ﷺ got very upset. He stood up and he said, لو كانت فاطمة بنت محمد أعاذ الله منها لسرقت لقطعت يدها. You speak about this? If my daughter Fatima, the queen of the women of Jannah, was to steal, I would have cut her hand off too. Doesn't matter, the rules are different. Though if you're a Desi in a community, okay, mashallah, you have some certain privileges. And if you're black or if you're a different color, you have some lesser privileges. I just had a Mexican brother messages me, Mufti Saab, kaise ho? Right? And the reason is because he saw me in the masjid and he said, this dua, can you please write it down for me? I wrote it. He said, can you write it in Arabic? I wrote it. I wrote the transliteration the first time. He said, can you write the English translation? I wrote it. Spanish guy. He's like, can you write it in Urdu for me too? I was like, yo, come on, you're wasting my time. Can I write Urdu for you? He's like, nah, these people won't consider me a proper Muslim until I don't know Urdu. And that hit me hard. And it hit me hard. This is the reality. We might be shy of speaking about it, but this is the reality. How many black people do we see on our members? How many white people do we see on our members? How many Arabs or Asians do we see on our members? I studied in a school with 56 countries. There's great diversity in our ummah, but let us not carry the baggage of those before us and just act like we're really not doing it, but in reality it's there. How much do we, when we go out with our friends, when we go on Eid, how diverse is our crowd of Muslim friends? You each decide for yourself. Abu Rimtha radiallahu anhu said, at that time I noticed a few hair of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that were red. Imam Tirmidhi says, this hadith is the most correct and closest on the subject of using dye. I'm going to finish this slide and that will be it. Imam Tirmidhi and Alama Shami rahimahullah say the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam never really dyed his hair. It was white, but it had a hue to it, a red hue to it. Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah says it is mustahab to dye your hair if your hair is white. Imam Shafi rahimahullah says it is sunnah. There are just legal classification differences. I will end off with one note. Excuse me. The Prophet of Allah didn't have white hair, excessive white hair, was because he was a human at the end of the day. And a woman, when you're married to someone and your husband starts getting white hair, what happens? Inclination starts decreasing. To love the Prophet in every manner and form is the duty of every Muslim. Again, the hadith is very clear. لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى أكون أحب إليه من ناسي وولدي ووالدي أجمعين. Take the whole world. Take your parents, take everything. You have to love me more than everyone. Because I embody the practical aspect of the Quran. It is just not me you're loving. You're loving the deen of Allah you're loving. You have to love it in its entirety. So even the physical attribute of the Prophet ﷺ was limited to very light white hair, was because if one of his wives saw him, or another Sahabi saw him, and their love decreased based on the white hair, their iman would be at stake. Their iman would be at question, was because the love that you have for the Prophet has decreased. And our love can only increase for him. It cannot decrease for him. And with this, subhanallah al-azim, inshallah, if there's any questions, you guys can ask. But before that, the chocolate brownies, Pakistani brownies. Oh, there's 4 of them. 2 of them were squished together. Question time, to see who was paying attention. How many chapters are there in Shomai'l al Tirmidhi?
55.
Yeah, you gotta raise your hand for that. You can take. This is good sunnah.
Yeah.
Take. Last one to her. The doctor.
No.
It's okay.
Someone came and we were eating at a dinner and they said, "Ustaz, have some dessert. It's sunnah." I said eating 1/3 wasn't sunnah. But eating. You took one, Doctor? Take it.
It's okay. Other people, you can ask more questions. Don't worry, I'll get more answers.
Alright.
I'm just
You don't know.
I'm just joking.
You don't know about you.
The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what was the quality of his hair?
Hand up, guys.
You guys really don't want these, do you guys? You're like, nobody raised their hand, just answer the questions. Alright, I'll leave this for whoever's Snickers next week, inshallah. Okay, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how many white hair did he have?
14, 17, or 20.
18 or 20.
How long was the Prophet's hair?
Between the earlobes and shoulders.
What are they called in Arabic? It's Jum'ah, not Jum'ah. Jum'ah is tomorrow. Wafra limma Jum'ah. And did the Prophet ﷺ dye his hair?
No.
Depends.
It's not working. Anyway, the Prophet ﷺ, did he dye his hair? Depends who you ask. Imam Bukhari was of the opinion that he did, and others were of the opinion that he didn't. And besides that, is there any question from the crowd before we move on?
Was the seal of the Prophet there when he was a child too?
Yeah, for birth.
Okay. And then the second question is, in that last hadith you showed, I mean, it seems kind of random. He just introduces himself, he introduces his son, and then he talks about the red hair.
See, if I had time, I wanted to focus on that. That is how brilliant the muhaddithin recorded a hadith. They were asked one question: how was the dye of the Prophet? So in the entire hadith, there's not only one section that's relevant, but they bring the hadith to show you that the hadith had nothing to do with he didn't come there saying that the Prophet ﷺ told me to dye my hair. It wasn't a ruling on that, but it was his observation that they deduced a ruling out of. And this is what Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi does. Is it permissible for me to drink water with hair inside it? Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi comes with a hadith in this chapter, and that's why Imam Bukhari is famous, not because he compiled the most hadith. The reason Bukhari is so brilliant is because how he correlates the hadith with the chapter title, where it's just like this. It seems completely random, but it's that one point that he deduces. Bukhari says that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam went and he drank some water, and the ring was on his left finger, right finger. He mentioned in the hadith. He went to the riverbank, drank some water, and I could see the ring, and it was on his left or right finger. What does this have to do with hair? No, but there's hair on a person's hand, and therefore, when the Prophet ﷺ drank water, there was natural hair on it, and there's permissible to drink water if there's hair inside it. From where did they deduce? It's just a small aspect. One hadith about a woman who came to the Prophet. She said, "Ya Rasulullah, I want to get married to you." Also, someone was like, it got a little really awkward. It was really quiet. One Sahabi was like, "Ya Rasulullah, if you're not." This is in a hadith. He raised the shalwar and he was like,
Oh, wow.
So the Prophet was like, he's like, "Do you have any money?" And he was like, "Nah, I'm kind of broke." He was like, "Anything?" He's like, "Do you even have like a 25-cent ring?" And he's like, "I guess I can find one of those." And the Prophet was like, "All right, make a ring out of metal or something, give it as a dowry, give something as a dowry." And then there's some Quran exchange and whatnot. And Imam Bukhari uses this hadith about over 20 times to deduce 20 different rulings from here, 30 different rulings. Surah Fatiha, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. From this one ayah, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahimahullah deduced hundreds of masail from here. It's the vision they look at, and that's a very important aspect, is that where did the hadith come from? But it was just his observation. Imagine there's no computer, there is no Google, there's no Wikipedia, there's no library. And all they do is they go through their mind to select the hadith and put it based on that. The brilliance behind it. And Tirmidhi didn't have Imam Bukhari's Sahih. He was cheating off of or something like that. They're contemporaries. They didn't have books you could just go download the PDF or something, or what do you call what's that word? Torrent, the audio copy. No, Spark Notes. No, none of that stuff. Imam Tirmidhi rahmatullahi had his own magnificent brain. Imam Bukhari had his own. Any other questions? No? Subhanallah, bihamdihi, subhanallah, alim, inshallah. I'll see you guys next week, Thursday, inshallah. If you want the ijaza, come every week and log yourself with
Send an email to info@roicmasjid.org.